My name's Karen McRae, and I'm working with Lochalsh Community Response to kind of host these events. And we're doing a newsletter and various things. So there's lots of other events going on, and we're just trying to support mainly the local community, but obviously these online events, the benefit of it. Muted myself. Yeah, everyone can join in and learn different things and new skills, which I think is really exciting to do. So yeah, we'll let you guys get started. I'll stop rambling on.
Thanks, Karen. So I'm Kate and this is Jake, and about 4 years ago we started Market Garden in Glenelg, which is the Northwest Highlands, and we started from a field and a hillside, and it's basically not very suitable land from the, if you look at it from the outside for growing on. We did a soil test and it was pretty acidic, and it was a lot of rushes and very damp, and so basically we just kind of got going, and our approach is definitely like quite gung-ho, just like have a go. And if we've got one message from this talk, it probably is going to be just like to hopefully give you the confidence to start if you are starting, or so we can have chats about things that might be like on your mind about growing. And yeah, so we started I think it was 2016, it's all blurring together. We made a few beds which we did using the no dig method, which we're going to talk about in a bit. And then one of the first things we really did was we built a greenhouse. Have you got the picture of that, Karen? Yeah. So we asked around. Jake's really good at finding materials wherever he goes. He's
flagging free stuff, basically.
Yeah. So we're trying to stick away from using plastic as much as possible, even though it's really hard to do that. So we decided we'd try and build a greenhouse for our seedlings, and then do everything else outside, which is a bit of a risk, and it might be stupid, but that's where we got coming from. So we built the greenhouse out of old windows that we managed to collect just by asking people in the village and a bit further afield. Like those ones on the right were from Pluxton High School, I think, like old windows from there. So we built this little 2.5 by 3.5 meter greenhouse, and that's still where we grow all of our seedlings from the start.
All the wood for that as well was milled locally, so that's local Douglas fir as well. In
Rattigan. So yeah, we've got very small space inside, which in a way might be good for this conversation because we've not really got a lot of kit, but we're managing to grow quite a lot. So yeah, so now we started off with about 4 beds, and now we've got I think it's about 42, and most of them are in this field, but some of them are on the hill just up there. So we'll go into that a bit, how we set up, because maybe that'll help if you want to set up a more kind of long-term garden. But we're also aware of some people might be listening to this thinking, you know, they might just be using a balcony or a bit of space like that. So we're going to try and do an overview without boring you to death. And we also wanted to tell you, like, we're not experts at this, you know, we're learning all the time. So we're going to mention a lot of textbooks that we use and people that are our heroes, and just talk about how we've learned, and then maybe it'll help if you're at the start of your veg journey. So I'm gonna reluctantly hand off to Jake now to talk about compost.
Great, thanks very much. So yeah, we were thinking how to where to start with a talk on veg growing, and compost seemed like the natural place to start. So yeah, if anyone ever asks me how to set up a garden, the first thing I'd say is to build yourself a compost heap. And that can be anything from a couple of pallets made into a corner, to bigger constructions with more wood, or smaller constructions have made wormeries out of fish boxes, and you get the wee plastic compost bins, which are great if you manage them properly. But yeah, compost is basically a great way of recycling all the organic matter in your garden. So as soon as you start, before you do anything else, you're probably going to be clearing some weeds. Yeah, you can start gathering them together, and rather than putting them in the bin or chucking them into the sea, which happens quite a lot here, or whatever, you can like keep them in your garden and really concentrate all those nutrients and keep recycling them, because the soil already has those nutrients in it, and you really want to keep them there. So when making compost, I always imagine that the compost is basically a big living thing. The compost heap is a big living thing, which it is. It's got thousands of bacteria in it and fungi, and basically what you're doing is you're feeding those things, and worms as well. So yeah, you've got to feed them the right things. So most living things need food, air, and water. So food is, well, this is stuff that I just took out of our compost heap, which some of you might find disgusting, but anyway, I'm going to go through it. So you tend to want a mixture of sort of brown and green things. So brown things are generally sort of drier things that have more carbon in them, and green things tend to be sort of wetter, and sort of more nitrogen in them. So in my little box here, I've got some toilet rolls. So cardboard is really good brown material. So on the west coast, it tends to be pretty wet. So you tend to want to put in stuff that's going to dry out your compost a bit more. So things like, cardboard. Got some old leaves. Some dry leaves. They're really good for adding sort of air into the soil as well as food. Sheep's wool. So living in crofting communities, which most of us probably do, sheep's wool and bracken are two really good additions to your compost. So this is actually the dags from the sheep, which is basically all the pooey, like arse end bits of the sheep that the crofters can't sell to the wallboard, and it's amazing. It's really good for your compost, and like basically crofters can't get rid of it too fast, so you can get a bag or 15 of this pretty easily when the time is right. So I definitely recommend that. Grass cuttings, you don't want to add too many grass cuttings all at one time, because they tend to form a sort of mat and a bit of a layer where air can't get through. All your kitchen waste, like vegetable waste, and also weeds. So I think a lot of people are really worried when they're doing compost that if they put weeds into it, it's just going to spread weeds everywhere. But if you do your compost right, the weeds should die. And if you have a big enough compost, you can actually get it hot enough so it kills the weed seeds. But in my mind, it's much better to recycle the nutrients in your garden and live with a few weeds rather than just chucking everything away and having to just buy in compost and nutrition. Let me just check my thing. So basically when you're making a compost, you want to try and layer up all those different things, so don't have too many of one thing in one place. So this is our compost bay here. So we've basically got 3 bays. The one on the left we've just finished filling, and that was probably another meter or half a meter higher, and it starts decomposing pretty quickly. So you want to add all your things together. You want to get air into it, so that might be by turning it, or it might be by adding those airy things like sheep's wool and cardboard, like I said, and also water is really essential. So again, that's not really going to be much of an issue around here. If you put stuff outside, it'll tend to get water, and that'll be fine. It's overwatering is the issue. So your compost should be kind of like a damp sponge rather than a sort of soggy wet rag. So if it is too damp, you might want to put some layers of cardboard over it to sort of shed the rain. A lot of people put carpet on their compost, but basically every compost I've seen with carpet on it has loads of tiny little plastic fibers in it from the carpet sort of rotting, or not rotting, but sort of falling apart into the compost. So unless it's 100% wool carpet, which is quite a fancy thing to top your compost with, I would probably advise against it. And as I said, like, it can come in any form, so you can build some big bays, and the bigger the better, really. Like the more size you have in your compost, the more bacteria can get in there, and the hotter it'll get. So our compost like often steams on a sort of coolish summer's morning, and that's just all the effort from all the bacteria and all the fungi sort of living and decomposing there. So that's a really good sign, and we can get compost probably in a couple of months from putting fresh stuff on. yeah, to digging it out.
I mentioned the plastic box ones.
Oh yeah, so, and probably if you're in a garden, a small garden, a lot of people have those sort of plastic bins. They kind of look a bit like Daleks. So they're quite good if you've just got a small space and you've not got a huge amount of organic matter. They're really good. The main issues with those ones is that they can either get too dry or too wet, and a bit airless. So it's worth checking it. And if it's too wet, add more of your brown material, so sort of cardboard, yeah, sheep's wool if you've got it, scrunched up newspaper, anything that will allow it to be a bit more airy. And if it's too dry, you can add, yeah, more wet stuff or just water it. But just, yeah, keep an eye on it and sort of get involved with it, I'd say. Yeah, it's not a scary thing, and it should be relatively safe as long as you're not putting in, yeah, don't put any sort of meat or dog poo or anything like that in it, and you can't really go too far wrong. Yeah, I think, yeah, so basically the main message is really just try and keep all the nutrients that you can in your garden. Yeah, don't waste anything, and there's loads of resources out there. So yeah, speak to your local crofters, go down the shore, get some seaweed. Wood chip is another great thing. Yeah, any sort of animal manure, vegetarian animal manure. Yeah, and you'll have, yeah, loads of good compost which you can then spread on the soil and, yeah, make beautiful vegetables.
What are the 3 bays for?
What are the 3 bays? So the 3 bays, so we kind of have an active bay, which is where we're putting all the stuff in. Like, so at the minute we're it's mostly weeding at the minute. So yeah, we're just putting all the weeds in there. But then we've got a bag of sheep's wool next to it. So that's the active one. That's the one on the right. The one on the left is the oldest one. So that's where we're taking it out from. So that's
the one in the middle.
The one in the middle, sorry. So that's all the dark, yeah, you can see that sort of dark compost, and we're just sieving it there. So we've got some chicken wire on a sort of simple wooden frame, and we're just sieving it, so we're taking out any lumps to put on our beds. And then the one on the left is the one that we've just finished filling, so that's the one that's sort of rotting down. So that will probably be ready in a few months. And if they get too compacted or too wet, once we've taken out the compost from the middle one, we can turn the one on the left into the middle one, and that adds some air to it. And we sometimes add wood ash as well, which helps with the acidity in it and helps things break down a bit.
I mean, you don't need 3 bays, but we're just we go through a lot of garden waste, so it's good to have 3 bays for us, but you don't need 3 bays.
No, it just means you've got more space to move things around, and you don't have to be digging out from underneath a pile where you've got fresh stuff on top. Yeah, hopefully. Do we have problems with rats? No, never had any problems with rats. We don't even really get mice, which might be partly because we've got a cat and she's a fairly avid hunter. It might be because I spend most of my time in the compost, so they don't like being there. And no, I think basically because we've got a big pile, things rot down really quickly. So we're constantly covering things, so nothing fresh is really exposed. So no, we've not really had a problem with vermin at all.
I tend to, it's not scientific really, but I tend to, if I'm putting kitchen waste on the compost, just get a bit of the grassy stuff and put that on top, and then it just stinks less and like just makes it seem a bit nicer. It might be a waste of time, but I tend to do that just for like pleasure rather than like anything else. And maybe that would help with, and I know that it is a problem with vermin in certain areas, so that's maybe why a lot of those Dalek-y type compost bins are quite good. Yeah. Should we move on to no dig?
Yeah, let's do it.
So the next section that we wanted to talk about was how we set up our beds in the garden, basically from a field full of rushes and pretty poor soil. So we, as you saw in the picture before, we sized a lot of that back and then made no dig beds, which doesn't involve digging into the soil like at all. One of our veg heroes is Charles Dowding. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's like an avid like no dig person.
That's the Bible.
So we use this quite a lot. If anyone's interested in getting a gardening book, that would be like the one to go for. Someone's asking how we got rid of the rushes eventually. So what I think we might do is we've made a video just to sort of jazz this chat up a bit, and then I'll talk about that after the video.
Play. I've been digging my potato, trapping on my ride. I've been digging my potato, trapping on my ride. I got my gal, Lord, I'm putting on my mind. I don't wait no cattle dream. I don't want charity. I got that woman in yellow, and she got kind of bed. They've been digging my potato, having on my ride. Empty my heart, leave my love behind. Hey, boy.
Yeah, so someone was asking how you get rid of the rushes, and basically we do things quite gung-ho, and we just went for it, but it worked quite well. We sized back so you had a flat surface to go with, then you lay the cardboard down, and you build up your bed with the manure and the seaweed, and it takes a few years, but the rushes do come through little by little, but it's not anywhere near like a big plant of rushes. And you can cut them, or you can pull them out a little bit and weed them as you would a normal plant. But it really isn't a big deal. And then within a few years, once you've improved the quality of the soil, you don't get them anymore because they don't want to be there when the soil's nice and you're making it for vegetables. The rushes don't want to be there. So yeah, it is amazing, and it's really good for weeds because once you're adding to the goodness in the soil, and you're retaining a really good soil structure, and you've got the worms working away after when we put the potatoes in and everything's being churned up a little bit. It just makes it a really excellent bed, and after a few years you've got this beautiful soil that you wouldn't imagine was what you originally put on there. So it's just an all-round really great way to start, and it's actually it is quite easy to do, even though you have to heft around a bit of manure. It's a really good approach, and in terms of the soil structure and not releasing carbon from the soil by digging, it's definitely like something that we like to promote if people ask us what we're doing. I realise that it's kind of more of a long-term thing, and some people might be growing in boxes and things like that, but if you do have a field or a back garden, like, it's quite an easy way to start a veg plot. Also, just wanted to mention another book that I think is probably the best veg book I've ever found, because it mixes together a lot of different aspects of growing, including poetry and respecting the land that you're using. And a lot of it, can you see that? Yeah. It's a woman called Leah Penniman who runs a garden just outside New York, I think. But she talks a lot about growing on marginal land, which I think is a situation a lot of people up here find themselves in. So from this, I got advice on how to make beds on the slope, which is, we've got quite a lot of slope, and it's actually north-facing slope, so it's not ideal either. But there's a method of terracing that is really straightforward and simple, where you put stakes in the ground and you can weave brash to make a little hurdle, and then we simply just dragged dead bracken and material into that edge, and then on the top of that we made the no dig beds, and it meant that we're not cutting away into the slope and creating any like unnecessary erosion. We're adding to the quality of the soil there. So yeah, I mean, I really would recommend this book if you can find it. It's just like a joy to read, and for like a gardening geek, it's the best, and it's not just kind of boring information. So
yeah, there's lots of really nice stories. Yeah, from like they're really into sort of intergenerational gardening, and which yeah, is definitely something that we've benefited from here, is speaking to lots of older folk who grew up growing vegetables when there weren't big bits of machinery and sort of all the chemicals around, and yeah, that's definitely how we like to grow. So
I'll write the name of the book in the chat so that you've got it.
Just while you guys are doing that, there's been a few other questions popping up as well.
Yeah, go for it.
So when you guys were starting in terms of the planning, how did you decide the design? Did you have a design, or was it just kind of picking areas that looked easier to tackle? Or
I'd like to say we started with a design. Well, we started so small, like we did 4 beds and planted potatoes into all of them.
Probably, yeah, it was a tatty heavy year.
I mean, we were in the position where we weren't doing it full time anyway, so we were starting things slow, and we had the privilege of doing that. So yeah, we sort of decided to observe, which has become a really good method of how we've done the whole garden. Is we didn't just like fire into it. Because we were new to that area, so we were looking at that specific hillside where things grow and like how the sun works at different times and stuff, and that really helped. So the design has happened like organically because of just observing the land. So I would really recommend just slow observation if you've got time to do that. I know a lot of people don't, and especially things to do with where the sun is.
Yeah, so we're basically growing on a sort of northeast facing slope mostly, which is just about the worst place you can try and grow vegetables. We don't get sunshine. We actually have no sunshine from I think mid-November through to like February sometime. So we have to basically cram everything into this small amount of time that we have. So yeah, there's a lot of observation of where the best sunny spots are, and yeah.
Okay, and sorry, just a couple of other quick things on the seaweed side of things. Would any seaweed do? And then one of the other participants points out that it should be washed up seaweed, so that there's none of the beasties and things. They remain in their appropriate habitat, I suppose.
Yeah, that's the thing. You are taking something from one place to another, which definitely involves bringing in some beasties. So it's good. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, we also so where we collect our seaweed from, there's a burn that runs down onto the beach. So yeah, we do only collect like washed up seaweed, and there's a little pool. Well, we kind of make a small pool in the burn and put all the seaweed into that first, so it washes out. So partly it washes the bugs out, but it also washes the salt off of it, because you don't want to end up salting your land. Which you can also just collect your seaweed after really heavy rain, which is most days. So you're sort of all right. But yeah, definitely washing it off is good.
But I think any seaweed.
But any seaweed, basically there's no seaweed that's poisonous. You want to avoid taking seaweed from areas that there might be sort of toxic residues. So I don't know, I'd say probably like right next to fish farms might not be a great place. And also this last winter, for the first time really, there was big storms which washed up like what we thought was a total bonanza load of seaweed, but it was just absolutely riddled with small bits of plastic. So it must have hit one of these big sort of plastic sort of things that's floating around in the ocean, like a big floating ball of bits of plastic. So that was really sad. So we didn't we didn't collect any seaweed from there. We actually didn't get much seaweed this winter because we just couldn't justify putting that much plastic onto our land, especially as we're meant to be sort of non-plastic growers. So yeah, but yeah, I think basically any seaweed, you don't have to pick bits out. Just plastic and chemicals you've got to worry about, but chemicals generally around here, you should be okay.
Okay. And just another question coming back to the cardboard side of things. Can you put it on straight onto gravel? Or any tips on where would be a good placement for laying those type of beds?
Well, you can stop me if this is wrong, I don't know, but I think you need to be putting onto existing soil or grass, or grass and organic matter. If you're putting it onto gravel, you're probably going to have to build it up a lot more, and that's probably going to end up more like a raised bed. Is that like?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
it's possible, but it's not going to do the same thing as a raised bed on a patch of grass would do.
I agree with that. But yeah, you could definitely do it onto gravel. You just need to have more material and probably build some sides. So all of our beds are sort of raised beds in as much as they're, because we've added so much organic matter, they're now raised from what was the original level, but we haven't built any sides on them. But probably for gravel, you'd want to build some sides. So if you can get hold of some untreated wood, and then just use the same method, like fill it up with whatever organic matter you can find.
And that's it. Yeah, the question about the seaweed not rotting down, for us it tends to sort of dry out on the top. We put it on the top a lot of the time. We have put it underneath, and that tends to work as well. But if you put it on the top and it goes dry, you can just take that off afterwards and horse it into your compost. And the main nutrients will have run out by that point. Or like Val was saying, just put it in your compost. That'll make your compost amazing. Like, it's such a good material to use.
Yeah, it's got loads of micronutrients in it that you don't get from a lot of other places. It's great stuff.
And
then
what's next?
Yeah, next. Good. Right. I think just the final thing on no dig is that we really, we don't even dig any grass, any rashes up, anything like that. It's just straight onto it. And basically, rather than putting in the effort of digging, we put in the effort of gathering organic material and like adding fertility to our soil. So it's effort one way or the other, but we sort of feel like you end up with a better growing situation if you put the effort into no dig rather than into digging or tilling or ploughing or whatever. But we are on a very small scale. So anyway, we're now going to do a little sort of practical demonstration on sowing, our sort of sowing methods, and what sort of things we grow and how we grow them and what you can grow now. There's going to be some computer reshuffling.
It's like the blue sheet a bit.
These are some of the things that we've got in the greenhouse at the minute. Well, we're not.
Just check people can hear you because you're far away.
Can people hear me?
Can everybody hear Jay?
Yes, we can hear and we can see it all. That's great.
Okay, great. So it's kind of getting on in the season a bit now, although it's not even midsummer. It's getting quite late for a lot of things, so it's probably past the time for planting things like potatoes and peas, beans and that sort of thing. But there are a lot of other things that you can still plant, some really tasty things. So spring onions are one thing that are really good. We're just going to go through a few simple ones. So spring onions, they're good. They grow quite easily. Beetroot you can still sow. We've got chard, which is leafy green for those who don't know it. It creates quite big leaves, and you can either eat it raw or in stir fries or whatever as a replacement for spinach. Carrots you can still sow outside. So carrots and parsnips are probably the only two things that we grow that you can't really grow in pots. You have to sow them outside because the roots don't like being disturbed. yeah, carrots, and you might get away with parsnips now as well. It all depends. Yeah, basically everything depends on the season we have, especially if you're growing outside. So it's all about experimentation. But basically, yeah, beetroot, chard, spring onions, and salad leaves would be probably our 4 main recommendations for sowing inside. You might get away with purple sprouting broccoli, which is a really good spring crop.
Very hardy.
And incredibly hardy. Like the plants grow to about 1 meter tall, like before winter, and then just sit there, even through the northeast facing Cossack winter of howling winds and sub-zero temperatures. It survives and then comes to amazing broccoli in the spring. Just seen a question: do we use a polytunnel? No. So we know part of our commitment to not using plastic is, yeah, we've not got a polytunnel. Partly a commitment to not using plastic, partly that we've lived and worked in other places that have had polytunnels up here which have blown down, which for a big polytunnel is, you know, you're talking several £1,000s, which you've got to grow a lot of vegetables to justify, justify getting one in the first place, and definitely replacing one if it blows down. So no, we've kind of gone down the route of having our small greenhouse and then growing things that are suitable for outside. So things that work really well, yeah, things I mentioned already, and then broad beans work really well, potatoes work really well. We're trying Swedes for the first time this year, but they've definitely, yeah, come with good local recommendations. Salads grow really well outside. A lot of people think salads are really sort of tender crop, but we've grown quite a lot of salads.
Behind the
Oh yeah, yeah. So this is some salad that's been growing outside for probably a month or so, and it's fine, not been slugged. It survived all the storms a few weeks ago. It survived that severe frost we had in the middle of May. Yeah, it's kind of amazing stuff. So yeah, basically you can grow a lot of things, and if people want, we can send a list of what we grow and what grows well outside. And I've just seen avoiding slugs. Yeah, so slugs are a real problem. I've just seen a slug in there.
Slug?
Yeah, there's a slug. So how do we avoid slugs? Partly by general massacring. So we spend quite a lot of our time going out and finding them and killing them. We've kind of developed special techniques for this, if that sounds bad. But anyway, we basically leave either planks of wood or bricks around next to beds, especially beds that are particularly vulnerable. So things like carrots and leafy vegetables. So we leave a brick or two around, and the slugs during the day tend to crawl under those bricks. So they basically act as a center for where all the slugs go. So during the day, you can just go and turn over a brick, find the slugs, and choose your method of execution, or chuck them into a neighbour's garden. But I'm not recommending that. So that's how we do it. And also, I think just keeping things tidy, like stopping the grass growing over the edge of the beds, not having like dead and dying leaves on your really helps. And keeping things clear so you can see the slugs, and also the birds are definitely your friends. So the clearer the beds are, the more the birds can see the slugs for that.
Someone's just commented about tin foil to stop the slugs. Have you tried that?
No, I haven't. We have tried copper. So yeah, copper's meant to work, but tin foil, yeah, definitely always up for new methods of stopping slugs.
And Robin, who's actually going to be hosting one of our next events as well, she's saying that you could be feeding the slugs to your neighbour's hens, and then it's less waste as well.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah,
we do have a neighbour with a lot of hens as well.
Yeah, we've got a neighbour with a lot of hens, so maybe we should be donating them.
Rather than killing.
Well, there's lots of slug suggestions now coming in.
Slug pods. I like a slug pod. Yeah.
We should maybe start a slug support group, because it's brought us a lot of
a lot of grief, and it is good to sort of know what you can do.
Yeah, there's
yeah, we basically totally avoiding using slug pellets, because their sort of effect on other animals in the wider environment doesn't seem to justify their use. But definitely just being more vigilant and like choosing your method and sticking to it seems to
And get your
be
patch
working
strong
for us.
before you.
And also growing healthy plants, which is kind of, yeah, we'll talk about that a bit now, is growing healthy plants. Basically, slugs tend to like more like weak and unhealthy, not exclusively, they'll definitely happily munch away a whole like healthy bed of kale or whatever, but generally the stronger your plants are, the less likely they will be slugged. So we're just going to quickly go through how we sow our seeds. So there's a couple of seeds. So that's the spring onion. We get a lot of our seeds from Tamar Organics, so we try and get organic seeds as much as we can. And there's beetroot as well. So the spring onion is White Lisbon is the variety, and that works really well. Seems to, every year without fail grows really good onions, spring onions. And this is beetroot, and this is a variety called Detroit Globe, which we've not tried before, but in fact we've just started sowing it, and it seems to be going well. But yeah, we can sort of say other varieties if that's useful. So yeah, as we mentioned, we try and use as little plastic as possible, and we've found a way of sowing seeds in modules without using any plastic at all, which I'll try and show you now. So we made some wooden seed trays, so they're just locally milled, untreated wood. So it's just a box about 4 centimeters high. This one's quite big, it's about 40 centimeters wide, but you can make them any size you like. And then we've got these things which are called soil blockers. So it's basically a metal frame, and then inside, I don't know if you can see it, it's got these sort of plugs which go in and out. Sort of looks like an udder, that's a little bit rude, sorry. So get your compost. So this is it's called a Moreland Gold compost. It's an organic seed-specific compost, but any sort of multi-purpose compost would work. I'd say my one rule with compost would be to try and find sort of peat-free compost if you can. I think it's sort of now widely accepted that peat is not really an acceptable thing to use for horticulture, because it's a really unique habitat, and it's not renewable at all. So this actually has what they call sort of sustainable peat in it. So they filter peat out of rivers, so it's been washed away. But there's peat-free alternatives, and we're always experimenting with different ones. But anyway, this is the Moreland Gold. So anyway, this is your compost, and it's quite light and crumbly and like a bit damp. But with your soil blockers, you add a bit of water. Maybe you could come closer again. So you get it like it's a sort of almost sort of like moist, spongy, like a moist sponge. That's the kind of technical term. And then you get your soil blocker, and you basically just mash it into your soil. It fills up the thing, and then you basically sort of poos out these little blocks. So you end up, that's just a block of compost with a wee dimple in the top, where you put your seedling. And then we just stack them inside our wooden seed trays. So we get about 90 of them to a seed tray, and they're great. It's basically a self-contained block. So that's that. You can sow your seeds into it. So with the things that we mentioned, beetroot, very easy to sow because it's got quite big seeds. You just pop one seed in per hole. And beetroot's quite interesting actually, because what looks like individual seeds is actually a cluster of seeds, and it's the same with chard, so that's all the beet family. So you get from one seed, you often get 2, 3, or maybe even 4 little seedlings coming out. So that's quite useful. We've got so this is some beetroot that I sowed about 10 days ago. You can see I just put one seed in per module. It's a little plastic module tray, so we've not totally moved away from plastic. and you can see that they're all coming up. And you can leave them. You can leave 2 or 3 or 4 seedlings in each module and just plant them out like that when the time comes. Get smaller beetroot, but you'll get, say, a cluster of 4 little beetroot, which is quite nice. Like that's like 1 meal's worth. If you did want to grow bigger individual beetroot, when your seedlings are about this size, you can actually thin them out. So we do a mix. So you've got, say, this is a module with 2 in it, and I just wanted pop like that. So that's gone, and you can eat these if you want. I think some people sell them as microgreens. We tend to put them in the compost, but yeah. So it's just as simple as that. So if you're thinning out anything really, like sometimes with kale, you accidentally put in a couple of seeds, or maybe intentionally you put in a couple of seeds per module, and 2 grow, and you tend to thin out the weaker one and keep the stronger one. But yeah, definitely this multi-block option is best, and that works well with the spring onions as well. So these are some spring onions. These are in smaller modules, again plastic modules. They work really well. Yeah, unfortunately it's a terrible material, but it is dead useful. So you can see there's 3 or 4 spring onions, and we just plonk them in the ground. You tend to want a bit of a wider spacing. But it works really well, and it saves a lot of thinning out, and it means you get to keep them all. So yeah, basically they're the 2 methods, either into plastic seed trays or with your soil blockers. And then the third option is to sow. This is one that I've actually taken most of the seedlings out, but I sowed this all with fennel, and so there was about 40 little fennel seedlings in here. So this is a good option if you don't know how viable your seeds are, so you don't want to waste loads of compost sowing individual seedlings into individual pots. Just sprinkle it onto the soil, and then you can, when they get to about this size, you can do what's called pricking out. It's basically taking out the seedling. You can just use, this is a specific fork, but you can use the end of a spoon or whatever and just prise them out. Don't worry, you end up breaking wee bits of roots off, but it doesn't matter too much. So yeah, that's, I don't know if you can see it, but it's got a wee bit of root on it. And then that you can either put into your plastic modules, or you can just make a wee hole in the soil block and squeeze it in, and that'll grow on well. So that's a good option for especially
ones that you've already done, right?
Tiny little seedlings. So.
Sorry, there was just a quick question. Relating to what you were saying there, when you're sort of thinning them out, as long as they've got a root, I'm presuming you would be able to plant them to kind of help them grow a bit stronger rather than.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the idea. Is so these are all, and they had a little straggly root on them. Some of them, a bit of the root snapped off, but as long as you've got some root, they tend to be all right. And then I just made a wee hole in the module, plunked them in and covered it up and gave them a quick water, and they survived. So yeah, it's a good option. And I think someone said, can you plant weaker ones so they grow stronger?
That's the same question.
Oh, that's the same question, right? Got you. Good.
I think so. Yeah.
So yeah, basically experimenting with different sizes. So these are in cells they're about 4 centimeters squared and about 4 centimeters deep. We've got some kale here, which is in tiny little modules, so they're maybe 2 or 3 centimeters circles, and you can see how big the kale gets. So that's, some of them are, I'll take one out to show, but yeah, from a tiny bit of compost, it's quite expensive compost, you want to use as little as you can. A tiny bit of compost, that's my hand, so that's probably, I don't know, going on for 10 centimeters tall, and these are pretty much ready to plant out. So you can grow quite a big, strong, healthy seedling from a very small amount of compost. And finally, so this is some chard. This is the leafy green I was talking about. So these are in the soil blocks, or whatever you want to call them. So you can see that's just like we've done nothing else than make the soil block, put it in the wooden seed tray, and then put the seed in, and out grows a really healthy, healthy chard plant. And these we'll be planting in the next few days, so they're ready to go. You can see the lower leaves here are starting to curl and go yellow, so that's a sign that they're ready to go in. So yeah, that's
there's just a question there about watering when they're in when they're, you know, when you've done the blocking and that sort of thing. What's the best way to water?
yeah, so I don't know where we've got it. We've got a little, so basically the actual modules when you first make them are really quite damp. Yeah, because you saw I watered them, so they're pretty damp, so they tend to last for, well, it depends on the weather, but 3 or 4 days, just being damp enough. And then the problem with these is that they've got an open hole, so you don't cover the hole. So if you water them with a watering can, it just floods the seed back out the hole, which we sort of learnt the hard way. So we lost a lot of seeds doing it that way. So we just sprayed them just with a little hand sprayer. You know, you just get like little garden sprayers and just put a fine mist over them and keep them damp. And they're kind of cool because you can actually just see the seedling growing. Like it just grows on the, you know, in the hole but on the surface. So you can see the root coming out of the seed. So it's really fascinating to watch that. And then once the root gets established and the leaves start coming out, then you can start lightly watering with a watering can. But we have found that these, yeah, they do tend to suffer with drying out quite a lot because you can't water them that much. So yeah.
But someone's asking about overwatering, which is something we've been definitely like thinking about this year, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, overwatering. Yeah, there's been a lot of problems this year, as there always are, in terms of heat and sunshine and cold and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, we've definitely overwatered a lot of our cabbages earlier in the season, and they tend to they get this thing called damping off, and they basically don't grow very well. The leaves often grow crinkly and horrible. So yeah, as a rule of thumb, you want the if you're growing in modules, like these plastic modules, you want it to be sort of moist on the bottom, but not dripping wet and not dry. And you can actually, once the seedlings start growing, you can very gently take them out and have a look. You can take out one from the whole lot, and you can see that's still quite dark. It's a bit crumbly on the bottom, so it probably could do with watering. And we've also taken to, we've made some big wooden trays and filled it with sand at the bottom, and we've been watering the sand underneath. So once the roots come through, I don't know if I've got an example. Oh yeah. So yeah, that's the spring onion. So once the roots come through, then they can take the moisture out of the sand, so it doesn't inhibit the root growth. So they're really healthy when they go in. Yeah, hopefully that makes sense.
Someone's just commenting there that they've used felt instead of sand, and I'm guessing it does the same principle.
Oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Yeah, we've like definitely any suggestions and recommendations like that we'd happily hear, because yeah, we're always looking for sort of non-plastic ways of doing that sort of thing. So yeah, maybe we'll try felt. We did try Hessian, but it was a bit coarse. It kind of just
dry.
It just dried. I think it actually like dried the plants out rather than making them more moist.
You need something spongy, don't you?
Yeah. But basically, yeah, it's just about like having a go. Quite often with our seedlings or with our seeds, in fact, with pretty much everything, we grow them successionally. So if we decide we're going to plant, say, 100 beetroot, we'll plant 40 1 week, 40 the next week, and 40 the week after. So we end up with, in theory, more than we wanted. We usually get some losses. So we usually reckon on a sort of 10 to 20% loss of seedlings, depending on the depending on what variety it is and what type of vegetable. So plant sow more than you think. You can always give them away to neighbours, or you always find space for them somewhere. Anything else to add to that?
Crop rotation?
Oh yeah, so crop rotation. So yeah, once these are ready, so the kale is ready to go in, so we'll plant it in. And you tend to want to plant, like when you're planting it, you make a hole in the soil, so you can use a dibber, which is we just use the broken end of a wooden spade, and just sharpen the point, just make a wee hole in the soil, and then plop in your seedling. And yeah, you want to make sure that it's in the soil, like in the ground, to at least the level of where the compost is, if not a bit deeper actually, with things like kale. In fact, most vegetables you can plant them slightly deeper and it makes it have a stronger stem. And they'll often regrow, some plants at least regrow roots from their stems, so they get really rigid. And that's also, yeah, a good way of making strong plants on the west coast where it's really windy. Yeah, tends to make them more sturdy. Yeah, and then so yeah, we plant out and then we follow a sort of crop rotation system, which I definitely recommend. I think there was a question about potatoes at some point. Yeah, I think a lot of people think, oh, just plant potatoes, but I definitely recommend rotating. So don't plant the same thing in the same bed for at least a few years. There's a lot of complicated information out there about crop rotation and what you're meant to plant after what and who follows which and all that sort of stuff, which you can get into if you're really interested. But I think as a rule of thumb, don't plant the same thing in the same bed for at least a few years and you'll be all right. Especially brassicas, because club root up here, especially with the acidic soil, can be an issue.
Just a quick question, when you mentioned the acidic soil there, someone right at the start was asking about how you would go about testing the soil.
Oh yeah, I'll just come around the other side of the table. So yeah, when we first started, we sent away a soil sample to the Royal Horticultural Society. I think it was like 20 quid, and we just sent you take a few samples from a few different areas in the place you want to test, and you tell them what you want to grow. So we said vegetables and fruit, and then they send you back a detailed analysis of your soil. So they give you your pH, nutrient levels for your 3 main nutrients, and then they tell you what you need to do to adjust the soil to grow those things. So in terms of our soil, it's really acidic. So we're growing blueberries, which love acid soil. So if you've got acid soil and you don't really want to do anything to it, grow blueberries or rhododendrons, but I think blueberries definitely better. And in terms of changing the pH, you can use lime. So we use lime when we're doing our no-dig beds. Before we put the cardboard on, we put down a layer of powdered lime or granulated lime, which you can get from builders merchants or from like Harborough or whatever. And the soil test will tell you how much lime per square meter I think you need to put down, and that can adjust your soil to the right pH.
You can also get the home kit tests. That it's like doing a little science experiment, and it tells you exactly what to do. We just sent it off to start with because we didn't trust ourselves, but you can definitely do that. Just buy yourself a kit and put on a lab coat and pretend that you're a scientist. Yeah. I just never trust my own results once I've done it. Did we put the blueberry plants straight into the too? Yeah, the blueberry. Sorry, so Debbie's just asked a question about the blueberry plants, which we essentially did it with the same principle. They do like a lot of organic matter. So we did put manure and things on, but we just didn't lime the soil. We just did the same technique as no dig, but without the lime, basically. And we've been adding specific things to it that won't change the acidity, but keep it at a certain level.
We've been using for the blueberries. We've been using like wood chip from Sitka. There's like local timber works going on, and they're chipping a lot of the branches, and but most softwoods have quite acidic structure. So we've been using them. We're making basically a big compost out of acidic stuff, which generally would be a terrible thing, but it's good for the blueberries. So using that, we've been using leaf mold. So that's just purely rotted down leaves, which we keep in a separate bay, and that tends to have. It depends which trees you collect it from, but generally around here it tends to be quite acidic, and that's good for improving the soil. And also like cow manure is slightly acidic. Most manure actually is slightly acidic, so you'll probably be all right. Val's
also added that adding bracken to the compost will make it more acidic as well, which is great for the blueberries too.
Yeah, that's really good tip. Yeah, the bracken's actually amazing. Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, it's a good resource. Yeah, most people want rid of it, but it's definitely, yeah, if you've got a bit on your land, savor it. I'd say.
Okay. Do you want me to just run through some of the other questions that I've been noting down as we've been going? Is that okay with you guys? So someone asked quickly, what's the white flower that you have there?
The white flower, that guy.
Yeah, I think so.
That's oxeye daisy. Yeah, it's an oxeye daisy. So they grow. Yeah, they basically grow like weed bunches. Once you plant them. Kate's just gone to the toilet and she's the flower expert, so I could say more, but I wouldn't really know what I was talking about.
It's not an edible one. It's just for.
No, I don't think so. But we do grow a lot of edible flowers. So we've got, in this we've got the sort of pinky purpley ones. That's chive flowers. So you can eat them. Hopefully Kate comes back in a minute. Sorry. I can stop lagging it. Those blue ones. What's that?
Yeah, so this is most. I don't know why I put the daisies in because they aren't. They're not edible. They don't.
They just look pretty.
Yeah, everything else is edible. No, that's not. Anyway, so yeah, I was just gonna. I did this because I thought it'd be cool to promote choosing some weeds to keep, because some weeds are really, really tasty and great and actually beautiful. Like this is sorrel, and that's like, I mean, you probably know, but it's like the most beautiful lemony leaf, and that grows everywhere. I actually grew it specifically, like a specific type of sorrel, but it's everywhere. So I've just started not weeding it and patches a bit, and then it like gets its own life back. That's bergamot or bergamot. I don't know how you say it, but you can make like really nice tea with that. And then obviously chives are really great as like ground cover. In general, like they go like mad, but are just so beautiful for bees and things. And there's mint in there as well. Yeah, and the like pansy, viola things, they go crazy, and they're perennial. So, and there's lemon balm in there as well. Basically, I think that some weeds are actually. Weeds are just, you know, it's all just a mindset.
It's definitely worth like looking at what's growing already on your ground, because even if it's not a sort of cultivated crop, like quite often you get the wild varieties of things you might want to grow. So it's worth seeing if you've got wild peas or like mint family or chive, you know, and like have a look at what you've got, and it tends to indicate what might grow well there.
Good idea. Okay, so hopefully I'll get all the questions. Someone was asking about growing raspberries in what depth of bed should raspberries have, or do you guys grow any raspberries?
We put some in this year, but we're definitely not raspberry experts. Do you know that?
No, they definitely do, like, as far as I know, quite deep sort of fertile soil. I assume you're talking about sort of raised beds.
Yeah, I think they were referring to raised beds on that one.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it depends what's under the raised beds. If it's, you know, if it's straight onto gravel, probably, go, you know, as deep as you can would be great.
Is it about 30 centimeters?
Yeah, they said they were a bit more specific, 12 inches or 18 inches.
Yeah, I think that's more of a pro question. You might have to. Yeah, I don't want to tell you. I don't know the answer to that, to be honest. We're experimenting with raspberries this year, but we've not grown them before ourselves. So maybe other people know.
So someone else has commented, raspberries don't need raised beds, just get the soil, pH, etc. okay.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, sounds sensible.
A bit more research on that one, because I don't know anything about raspberries either. So.
But I love raspberries so much. We put in some golden raspberries as well this year. I'm just hoping that they work because I want to eat them.
Yeah, and hopefully the birds won't eat them. Someone's also commented as well. Okay.
Birds this year so much. Like we've had to cover a lot of things, but I guess you just learn what you need to do as it goes on.
Yeah.
Oh, raspberries apparently like chicken manure as well. So there's a good tip from Val, who I think.
Oh, yes.
Great.
Nice.
We'll maybe have to get Val hosting one of these as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
Lots of knowledge there, I think. Okay, potatoes. There was a few questions on potatoes. So there was a lady had emailed in prior to the event asking, she had been given a bag of potatoes and they've sprouted now. Would they be viable to plant them as seed potatoes?
We did have a chat about this. We were in our minds, our gung ho minds, we want that to be possible, but I think it's not possible. I think it's too late. It's worth it. It's worth an experiment if you've got like a bit of space to do it in, but I don't think you get anything out of it.
Yeah, it's probably a bit late in the season. It depends. You know, if we get a heat wave for the next 3 months, you might be all right. Yeah.
We tend to do potatoes like Easter time. Put them in around then.
Yeah, sort of mid-April.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I mean, give it. You know, if you've got space and you're not putting anything else in, why not give it a go?
I did grow, and potatoes are quite. They're not as hardy as you think they're going to be, but I did completely break the rules with onion sets one year. I planted them really late into like fresh manure, and they were all right. Like,
yeah,
you know, it was worth doing because someone gave us some spare sets. So yeah, it's always worth like just testing out the rules.
Yeah, try it once, and if it doesn't work, then
I guess if you've got it to play with, sometimes things are more precious than that. But it's good to experiment.
Yeah, I'll just quickly say as well, it is now 12 minutes past 5, which is fine. There's some people that are saying thank you and that they're just going to have to leave just now, but we can kind of carry on and try and get the rest of the questions answered. And like I say, we are recording it, so if anyone's had to leave early and we didn't get their questions, hopefully we'll get them now, and we'll be able to get the videos up on the website at some point. That's on my to-do list. So to do sprouted potatoes, planting in gravel. Someone was asking about the raised, not your raised beds, sorry, the beds. Can you plant straight onto the beds?
We tend to plant potatoes into them the first year.
Doesn't have to be potatoes, sorry, just generally planting anything.
But is this question about the no dig beds? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So we it does seem like this is all about potatoes. We tend to put potatoes in first because it's the best thing to start them off with, because the potatoes break up the soil underneath and everything starts to wake up a bit.
Yeah.
And move, you know, the worms get working. But yeah, I did grow onions straight into it one year, and they, you know, it definitely is not advisable, but it worked. So
it's worth it depends. It partly depends how well rotted your manure is. And what time of year it is, but we tend to make our raised beds like from autumn, like through winter, as early as possible, so they're ready in the spring for planting tatties into. But it also depends what you're growing. If you've got really well rotted manure, or you're using compost or something, you could grow something that's shallow rooted straight onto it, which would provide ground cover. So something like salads. Salad would be a good first crop, because it probably wouldn't need to go down into the what is the main bit of the soil, but you'd still have something in there to kind of keep weeded and growing. But it's a bit of a longer term thing mostly, but it depends what sort of material you're working with.
Okay, and then staying on the potato theme, Kate's asking, how often do you have to soil up the potatoes, and do you have to completely cover the leaves coming through? Well, that's a good question, because we're growing potatoes as well, and I don't have a clue what we're doing.
Yeah, that is a good question. We could say what we tend to do. I'm sure there's more potato experts out there, but you're maybe more of a potato expert. I know what I do, but maybe it's not the right thing.
No, I don't. I mean, I think it depends. It depends what soil you're working with. Like, because we plant our potatoes straight into the no dig beds. There's not a great sort of like crumbly soil initially to draw up around the potatoes to earth them up. But what we do use is we use like grass cuttings when we're siding. We use grass cuttings or bracken cuttings, and we cover the tatties with that.
But we don't completely cover them all the time.
Oh, I do sometimes.
There you go.
Yeah.
I never completely.
It's okay to completely cover them,
Yeah.
as long as you don't keep completely covering them as soon as they poke a little leaf out. Like, you need to let them grow a bit and then you can cover them. But basically the idea, well, from what I understand of earthing up, is partly so that more tubers can grow under the ground, but it's also you don't want any sunlight touching your potatoes, and they do tend to.
They're quite close to the surface of the top ones.
So you want to stop them going green, basically. So yeah, we've actually found that, like, just putting grass cuttings, like lawnmower cuttings or any sort of organic material, really, just to build up the bulk, kind of works. And the actual potato plants tend to shade out anything underneath, so not too many weeds grow. But you can definitely totally cover the leaves and they'll grow back out to a point, but you need to stop doing that at some point so they can actually get some sunlight, I'd say.
Okay, great. Now, I've said people have been asking about what varieties you're using, so perhaps we can put a wee email round with some of the varieties that you're using and a book list and a few bits and pieces like that. So if anyone does have questions, we can do it that way. There was another one. Do you cover the beds over winter to stop all the nutrients being washed out?
We don't tend to. It is really wet, our garden, but we don't cover the beds. We mulch them a lot and we add a lot more material in the winter if they're not being used. But the no-dig beds are really good for that. They tend to hold the nutrients much better anyway. So, no.
Yeah, we don't cover them with any material, like as in like plastic or cardboard or anything, but we do tend to try and put a layer of, either put a layer of manure or compost on once the last crop is done, or like have a crop in there. So there's loads and loads of winter veg that you can grow that will just be in the ground, and that ties up all the nutrients in the actual plant. So there's a lot in the brassica family, like cabbages and kales, Swedes, that sort of stuff that'll be in the ground. In some places you can probably keep spring onions in. Some people, we've not been successful with it, but broad beans can do all right. And another really successful crop that we grow is garlic. So we plant that, just individual cloves into the ground. We plant that in November time, and that starts great, like as soon as, if there's a warm spell. Oh yeah, there's our that's the garlic. So that's our garlic now. So we'll probably be harvesting that in at the end of the month. So that's the end of June. So that's really good, and that will just slowly start coming through. You can do winter greens, so things like endive and chicory. That's
we try and
our
plant
garlic.
it, but we always forget how to do it every year, and we have to watch a YouTube video. But
so yeah, that's when we harvested that almost this time last year, and it's still good. And you so like actually, I think I saw a question about seed saving.
Yes, that was the other one.
We do save some of our own seeds. So garlic is one. We do buy some garlic just in case our stuff goes bad, but it never has. So garlic we save, and you literally just sun dry out the cloves so they go papery on the outside like you buy in the shop, and then store them in a cool dark place. Peas are really easy to save and they last for ages. The peas we're growing this year, I think I saved the seed 3 years ago, and they're still really good.
And we had a whole bed that didn't work with bought peas, and then the ones that we saved, every single one worked.
Yeah.
Which was like the opposite of what we thought would happen. But I guess they're just like best peas for here now. So.
Yeah.
Saving seed is good when you can do it. We want to get more into that because it's got to be the future of things. But it's harder on a small scale because you've got a lot of like cross pollination happening with certain things.
Yeah, I think garlic and peas are probably the main things, and we aspire to many more, but we've not quite got there yet. The other, actually, one good tip if you're growing stuff in the greenhouse is like we sow stuff in our own compost sometimes, and quite often you get seedlings growing out of that from seeds, from plants that set seeds last year. So if you've totally missed the boat on buying seeds for some reason, and you've got some compost in a compost bin, just stick it in a pot and water it and see what comes out. And I've grown tomatoes that way, and they're often the best tomatoes because they kind of want to grow. They've not been plucked from some deadly hot southern land and brought up to Scotland. They actually decided to grow of their own volition here, which is a good thing, I think.
There was another question from a lady who's down in Dundee. So she grows in her small greenhouse tomatoes, chilies and cucumbers. What can she grow in there off season, sort of between October and April? Any suggestions?
Inside
in a greenhouse, I suppose.
I think you can get salad all the way through if you want.
Yeah.
We're definitely more of outside growers, but it's definitely salad. And
if you're growing, you could probably overwinter things like
maybe broad beans would be inside.
Yeah, you could definitely start your broad beans off inside, like put them in pots, and they grow up. So they benefit from the protection. Salads, there's loads of winter salads. There's the same guy, Charles Dowding, does a really good winter vegetable book, and that's basically all about keeping stuff in the soil, so not having any dead space. So that's got lots of really good suggestions. But in the greenhouse, you might find if you sow them now or even in a month's time, something like carrots might do, and they keep really well in the soil. So yeah, even if you're growing in pots, you might sow a bunch of carrots, and you probably could eat them through the winter.
This is my new thing. Is it's just like mustardy leaf. It's a brassica. It's red frills and green frills. We've grown it really early, but you can grow that in the winter. It's a good winter salad. And our friends have a farm down south, and they're on a much bigger scale, but you can cut it completely and it comes back. So you don't have to leave any leaves on it. I was like, and you just cut it back. And also we've just been cooking with it. Like, you don't have to just use it in salad. It sort of tastes really sort of strong, cabbagey, like spicy cabbage sort of flavour.
Yeah, and someone's just put rocket and Mizuna. Basically all the sort of brassica leaves are great. One thing to watch out for with growing any sort of brassica, so that's like the cabbage family, is it's easy to grow it all the time because it's so successful, but especially up here you've got to watch out for clubroot, which is I can't actually remember what it is. I think it's a bacteria or fungus or something that basically makes the roots of the plants go into clubs, and so you won't. If you get that, you can't grow cabbages and kales and that sort of stuff. So just beware of the brassicas, but they're definitely great.
There's another question here about coming back to the new beds that you're making in the autumn. When you make new beds in autumn, do you mulch it over in winter? That makes more sense. Do you mulch over it in winter?
Yeah.
No,
we probably wouldn't add anything until, it depends if we immediately put something into it, but we wouldn't. I think once the things come out, we might add something.
So it seems to be quite stable, like the manure and the seaweed. The nutrients seem to stay there. I think they're sort of quite stable. They don't get washed. All the fertility seems to be there. Like, we don't add anything in the spring even when we're growing our tatties. We just go for it, and it kind of works. It sort of depends on the soil you've got, but like we said, we've got pretty rubbish soil, and just with the seaweed and the manure, we grow pretty decent tatties. So
but we still are building up. There's things that we have to build up in the soil still. Like things that we want to add and work on.
Yeah.
But it was working pretty well so far.
So someone's asked about jute leaves.
You don't know about jute leaves?
No. Not a West Coast one anyway, I don't think.
No, it would be great because there's loads of good stuff you can make out of jute, but let us know if you find anything out. And
what about fruit trees? Do you have any of those on site?
Yeah, so this year we've put in loads of fruit. So we've got a flat bit of hill that's a bit higher up. That's where the blueberries are because they get us the most sun. And then coming down the hill, we've put in I can send pictures if you're interested, but we put loads of blackcurrants because they work really well here anyway, and plum trees, and we've done apple tree cordons because it's just a good use of space. It's all an experiment. We've just put those in this year, so we'll see. We could maybe get back to you with whether it was successful or not.
Yeah,
we've got 2 apple trees and 2 plum trees already on the site, and you know the plums are quite fragile to the late frost, so we'll see. But we've had a really nice crop of. I was eating plum every morning before I went to work one year, which was like the most idyllic thing that you could possibly do. But then last year it was pretty rubbish. So the apples do great.
I think that they're just quite fickle with the weather. But I think also plums, especially plums, seem to come in a huge abundance. Like, I don't know, if you know anyone with a plum tree in the local area, they tend to have 1 year out of 3 where there's just 1 million plums, and then a few years of no plums. But you can actually, if you thin out the blossom or the fruit just as it's emerging, you tend to stress the tree less, so you can have less of a glut 1 year but more consistent over a few years. So it's worth tending to them. And we also, I don't know if you said, but we've got blackcurrants. Did you say blackcurrants? Mm-hmm. It's fine, it's just repeating.
Yes, someone asked, is there anything that you don't actually grow?
Oh, we did want to mention, like, there are some things we've tried outside that didn't work, like, but it could be that it's just specifically a wet, miserable patch. I don't know. It's not miserable. It's lovely. There's so we tried squash 2 years in a row, and we did get like a couple off the plants, and then they just like rotted. So we're not doing that this year because they take up a lot of space. Yeah.
But if you had a sunnier site, I think it would probably work.
But I didn't mention this. I didn't mention this, which I should have mentioned. That just thinking something through. Fennel grows amazingly outside here, and I've got friends even just over the hill that are like never managed to do it, but it seems to really like the wet. So any people up here, it's worth a shot.
Yeah, the Florence fennel, the bulb fennel. It's great. Aubergines, you don't grow aubergines or avocados, I don't think.
Yeah, I'd like to try.
But who knows?
Something to try. And there's a few people saying when lockdown ends, can we come and visit? And I'm also in that group.
Yeah.
I think I'd want to go to Val's garden.
Yeah.
Go to Val's first and then come to ours.
But it would be. We did speak to Karen about this. Like we said at the start, we're definitely not experts, and we're quite interested in just like broadening the conversation that we're having with everyone, because you never stop learning, and we've got neighbours that like help us out all the time. So I don't know how we'll do it, but maybe we could have a little group of pals that talk about veg all the time. Yeah,
if anyone's up for setting up a local discussion group, and we did a mentoring scheme a few years ago where we went and visited different farms and different growing projects in the Highlands, and it was amazing. Just spending a few hours in someone else's garden just gives you a million ideas that you can never read about in books or anything. So definitely come up. But
there's one other question about companion planting, which is probably quite a big topic.
Well, this year we in a place we worked before, there was definitely like, the tomatoes with the marigolds works really well. It's something that I'm really trying to get into more. So this year, because of all our pest problems, I tried for the cabbage bed I read in Farming While Black that they broadcast lettuce leaves through their whole bed, and I also put some marigolds in just for good measure, and then you can plant your brassicas, it doesn't have to be cabbages, into that, and it means that you've just got more of a diversity of what's growing, and then the pests don't attack one specific thing so much. So I wish I'd saved a picture of it because I'm really excited about it. It was on the video maybe, but we can share it.
Karen might have.
But definitely experiment with that. And from what I've read, I know that Charles Darwin says that there are specific pairings, but generally if you can have a bit of diversity in your bed anyway, it really helps. So you don't have to be too worried about exactly what goes with what, but mixing it up a bit is really nice.
Yeah, and we also sort of pretty much in the middle of where we grow all our veg, we've got a big sort of circular bed where we have herbs and flowers. Although they're not in exactly the same beds, it's a kind of companion planting in that it attracts lots of pollinators. Which also, you know, attracts birds. So we're fairly interplanted. Like we don't have like one specific area for flowers and herbs, and they're not all separate. They're all kind of mixed in together. So we kind of do it in a way, but definitely could learn more about it.
Great. And there was another quick question about deterring rabbits.
I have nightmares about rabbits, but we've never had them up here yet.
Yeah, just live somewhere where there aren't any, I think is the best.
Yeah.
My nightmares have like small rabbits, giant rabbits, all in between. Our cat actually brought a rabbit up here from down in the village, and Jake saved it and brought it to me while I was in the garden, and I was like, get it out of here immediately.
It was so cute, but it had to go.
It wasn't a pet rabbit.
It didn't do, no.
It became the cat's dinner eventually. She got it back.
Jake had to kill it because he decided that was the best thing to do, but it was quite traumatic in general. But yeah, any tips on that would be great, because I imagine like eventually it will happen.
We've got a cat and our neighbour has 2 terriers, so that is probably a good start. But
Sounds like sorting rabbit fencing is a nightmare, like the work involved. But yeah,
I think like definitely in Glenelg historically there were people who came round and like had ferrets and put out snares, like lines, hundreds of snares, and got rabbits. So potentially if there's a group of you growing in one area, you could get together and pay someone to come in and do some trapping.
Or just live happily with the bunnies and never have any vegetables ever again.
Yeah, or just eat rabbits. Might be, you can eat the vegetation, you can eat the rabbits.
And talking of pests, any problems with flatworms?
We don't, but Arnisdale has that.
Yeah, just down the road they have flatworms, but no.
But people still manage to grow there, don't they?
Yeah, they actually. Yeah. I'm not sure. Yeah, I know they're there, but I don't actually know if they've had problems with it particularly.
Have you got problems with flatworms, Jasmine? It's hard to have a conversation on this. In Arnisdale, yeah, we could definitely involve someone that grows amazing stuff from Arnisdale into the group eventually, because he's been growing for years. Like he'd know he'd probably have some tips anyway.
Yeah.
Plenty of earthworms, that's good.
Well, that's good, yeah. I think, I don't know, I think with a lot of pests, definitely I think we kind of go by the general idea that if you have a good balanced healthy soil and healthy plants, like pests generally, even if they're there, they're kind of manageable. I'm not quite sure if that applies to rabbits, but most other things, I think if you
flatworms.
Or maybe flatworms. But yeah, I don't know, if there's still plenty earthworms, then that's a good sign. You must be doing something right, I think. So keep doing what you're doing.
And I think you guys are very inspiring in terms of just crack on, and if it doesn't work, then at least you've tried, which is very much what I sign up to as well with the Zoom sessions. So I think that's all the questions. If I've missed anything, I do get a copy of the chat thing, so I'll send that over to you guys as well, and we'll be sending out some more information about the books and your variety lists, and maybe some extra photos as well about the things that
we'll put that together.
Yeah, definitely up for that.
And I'm just going to say thanks, Karen, because you're amazing at this. I don't know how you do this.
just go for it.
Just crack on.
There's nothing to lose is the way that I'm thinking about it, and it's something that we can all apply to everything in life, I think. So why not at the moment as well? Everyone's just saying thank you very much, and we'll definitely look at something to stay in touch and share information, because there's a wealth of amateurs, I guess you could say. No one has to be an expert on anything, but we all have something to contribute. So
absolutely.
Brilliant. We shall call it a night and we can all go and get our dinner. And thank
Yeah.
you very much everyone for joining. We
Oh, yes.
got up to 72, so well done. Thank you.
Bye.